Hi, this is Bed Rest Coach Darline Turner, owner and founder of Mamas on Bed Rest and Beyond. Today we are bringing you yet another piece in the saga of Makena. I got an email yesterday stating that the distributor and marketer for Makena, K-V Pharmaceuticals, is actually filing a lawsuit with the US International Trade Commission asking that they rule in their favor that they be the only marketing and distributor for 17-hydroxyprogesterone injections, or Makena, in the United States. And they're asking that they kind of impose restrictions on all the other companies, many companies, who provide compounded 17-hydroxyprogesterone injections. I mean, for those of you like me who may have been following this, we're all going, really, are you serious? Because 17-hydroxyprogesterone, first and foremost, has been around for decades, I think. I mean, it has been used for the prevention of preterm labor for decades. And, we all kind of know this is what you do and this is what you use. And no one has been like, well, you can't use my brand or your brand or what have you. It's if a woman needs 17-hydroxyprogesterone injections, she gets them. So for Makena or K-V Pharmaceuticals to come along and say you can only use this one was a little absurd. But let's go back in the history. 17, like we said, 17-hydroxyprogesterone injections have been around for a really long time. Decades, and they've been used for the prevention of preterm labor for decades. In February of 2011, K-V Pharmaceuticals was granted authority by the US Food and Drug Administration to market and distribute Makena, their trade name for 17-hydroxyprogesterone injections. Now, in and of itself, that's not a big deal, and no one really thought a whole lot about it. We were kind of excited, us in the birth world, because we thought, okay, now this has an indication, and hopefully it'll be more readily available. Well, come to find out, K-V Pharmaceuticals, like 1 month later, turns around and announces that these shots, which have been previously offered for between $10 and $20 a shot, are now going to be $1,500 a shot. I mean, unbelievable. That's thousands of time markup. And it effectively knocks out availability for thousands of women, if not all women, because a lot of times 17-hydroxyprogesterone injections were not covered by insurance. And it took a treatment that was originally $200-300 and bumped it up to about $30,000 because women typically got between 10 and 20 shots during their pregnancies. I mean, we have all been outraged. Like, what are you thinking? What are you doing? So many people have written blogs and testimonies and, just what are you doing? And talking against this move by K-V Pharmaceuticals. It's been so dramatic that the American Congress, they've changed their name, of obstetricians and gynecologists, excuse me, and the American Academy of Pediatrician, American Academy of Pediatricians, got together and wrote a letter and said, this is awful, this is deplorable, and they were just incensed. Additionally, the March of Dimes, who had, I guess, previously created an alliance with K-V Pharmaceuticals, broke it off, was like, no way, this is just completely not what we want to be about. And so everyone was just like, rah, up in arms. A couple months later, K-V Pharmaceuticals comes back and says, okay, we'll cut the price to like half. But even still, you're still talking $5,000 or $6,000 for a therapy that was previously $200-300, and it really didn't assuage the ill will that had now developed between K-V Pharmaceuticals and most of the medical community as well as consumers. So, it's just been kind of a back and forth thing. And KV has gone back and forth with, well, we're not getting a fair deal, we're not getting a fair shake. And then in the process, they file suit with the FDA to have them enforce a statute in their drug approval protocol or whatever that says no one else but the company that has gained drug approval and approval from the US FDA may market or distribute. So they wanted punitive action taken against all these other pharmaceutical companies and providers of the 17P injections. Well, in a stunning move, which we were all like, yikes, the FDA says, no, we're not going to enforce it. Because I think everybody realized that the steps K-V Pharmaceutical had taken to that point were just so drastic and so non-consumer and patient oriented that people were like, forget it, we're not going to do anything to make things easier for you. So it's been a huge, huge problem for KV. Everybody else seems to be okay. Most women go ahead and get their 17P shots that are compounded and have been fine. And along the way, I don't know if it was before all this started or in the process or what have you, KV has been in bankruptcy. So if you look at this, it's all kind of starting to make a little bit of sense. They've lost their ability to manufacture ages ago due to some, whatever. They just lost it. I can't say specifically because I actually forget what it was, but they lost their ability to manufacture. They had been told, you can't do that. So they had to find drugs and things that they could market and distribute in order to try and keep solvent. Well, it's okay that they do this. This is America. We're a free market system. But it's not okay to gouge the public. And that's really kind of what's been happening. So, I think we've all kind of seen it. We understand their position, but how they've gone about trying to deal with their position, i.e., gouging the public, putting pregnant women and their babies at risk, making a treatment that they need essentially unavailable or trying to in the process, really just didn't sit well with anybody. And we've all been kind of like, ew. So nobody's been using Makena, or very few people, I guess. A lot of pharmaceutical companies, not pharmaceutical companies, excuse me, insurance companies still aren't covering it because it's like, hey, why bother? We can, if we have to, cover the compounded 17P shots. They're only 10, 15 bucks. Hey, what? Everybody kind of moved on. And here was KV still kind of struggling. So here we go again. They're back. They are filing a lawsuit with the U.S. International Trade Commission, stating that they need them to step in against all these other pharmaceutical companies and, enforce the fact that they are the marketer and distributor of Makena, the 17P shots. Every now and then you kind of feel like going, hey, folks, just give it a rest. Because I think what is most disturbing to me as I read through the document that they submitted to the US ITC is that first and foremost, they are worried about their company, their profits, their bottom line. 17P injections are, in this case, intended for use for pregnant women to halt and prevent preterm labor and to hopefully, ensure a healthy delivery of a newborn child. That's kind of like the last thing in their list of reasons of why they want this judgment. And I have them here. I'm summarizing because I don't want you to have to read the whole legal document. But their first reason is, we have unfair competition because all these other companies are marketing and distributing the 17 progesterone shots more inexpensively, and that's killing our business. Well, that's kind of on you because the rest of the industry has never really changed their pricing. KV came in with this exorbitant cost and people just said, forget it, I'm not buying from you. So they have actually kind of created this adversarial atmosphere in which now they are kind of the underdog. So, we'll see how that flies. Their second point is other compounds are of inferior quality. Now, there was a study done, and I'm trying to remember back when it was, where the FDA was going to look at whether or not the other compounds were inferior or were not to standard, what have you. One thing I can say is I have yet to hear of, and this is not that I hear of everything, but yet to hear of any adverse reactions, complications, what have you, from women taking these compounded 17 progesterone injections. There is nothing that I have seen, and again, I don't see everything, and if anyone knows of anything, feel free to correct me, that says that by using Makena as opposed to one of these other formulations, your pregnancy is going to be so much better, you're going to be so much safer, and life is going to be grand. So they have that in there, I can't really say it's all that great. Which brings us to the third point that they have is that, we have to protect the public's health. From what? I mean, we've been doing this for decades, so now we need to change it? Okay. And then we get to the real meat of the matter. Their fourth point is, we were granted approval by the US FDA, and we were given sole, I keep thinking custody, but that's not, sole permission, if you will, to be able to market and distribute Makena. It's kind of like a petulant child. It's mine, it's mine, it's mine. And, they want that enforced. And again, those of us in the birth world, people who deal with pregnant women who are having preterm labor and all, are kind of going, hmm. I mean, it just seems so petty in a lot of ways. And their last point, or last 2 points is, we are ready to be the supplier to everyone. Well, I think the problem being is they showed their hand to be somewhat untrustworthy. I mean, let's look at it this way. Given everything that's happened over the last almost 2 years, do you really want to do business with these people? It's they've set up an atmosphere of people don't really trust them. They don't feel comfortable with them. So I think it's going to be very hard for them in the marketplace to forge alliances, which I think they're seeing right now. You can't make someone like you. I mean, I have children and I say this, if you're not nice to people, they're not going to want to play with you. And, their moms or whatever shouldn't make their children play with you if you're not nice. And this is kind of where we are with KV. You didn't play nice. Now nobody wants to play with you. Why should the government then come in and make them play with you? And that's kind of the big question. And finally, they're like, but McCain is so good in it. It's, there's no harm to customers and there's no rise in cost. Well, yes, there is. There is a rise in cost because if a woman's insurance company does not cover Makena, she will be forced to pay either $650 or $1,500, whatever the price is at this point, and that's a hardship. And so she's then going to be forced to choose. Do I try and pay this and bankrupt my family, or put us in financial straits, or do I try to save the life of my unborn child? And it's just it's a horrible place and it's a horrible position that they are trying to impose upon the public consumers, and people really aren't loving it. Um, and finally, and I thought this was really good, they had it in the last part. They're like, well, our price, we have to increase the price because we had to go through FDA filing, and then we have marketing and distribution, and basically it's like we are justified in doing this because we need to cover our own butts. And while this is true, I understand that, people, if you have something in business, you are entitled to, manufacture and distribute, market, what have you, a product. But again, I come back to that does not give you the right to gouge and to take advantage of the public. And I think whether they intended to or not, I cannot say, but I think that is the perception that much of the general public has, and hence much of the general public doesn't really want to do business with them. So here we are with K-V Pharmaceuticals kind of begging the US ITC to make them play with us, make them work with us. And I don't know. I don't know how it's going to play out. Personally, I can't see doing it. I don't know how the US ITC will rule, but as a consumer, I wouldn't want to buy that product. Unless you can show me that it's substantially better than what's already out there and that it warrants all of this attention and increased in price and what have you. It just doesn't. And it's the thing I find hard is it is not as if KV developed the 17p shots. These are shots that have been around. If they were a company that you know, synthesized the molecule that's the active component, and they purified it and they worked with it and they studied it and they did, clinical studies and clinical trials and testing it in the patient population to see how it worked and how it behaved and were there complications. I mean, if they had done all of that, then I'd probably say, well, maybe they are entitled to have an increase in funds. But no, there was a product, a compound that was already established, 17 hydroxyprogesterone. It's And they basically said, well, we want to have the rights to it, put in the paperwork, and the FDA said, okay, fine, you can have the rights for it. Nobody else is looking for it. And now want to act as if they have created it. And that's, to me, that's a disconnect. It's not okay. And I think for the general public, for a lot of the medical community and a lot of other companies, it's the disconnect, and it's the area where people don't want to deal with them. And I think it's just a shame. I feel badly for the company. I feel badly for the employees. Whoever is in management and the decision making goofed. I mean, in just simple terms, they really, really goofed. It was not a wise choice, not a wise thing to do. And unfortunately, I don't think this is going to end well for KV. But there it is. That's where we are right now, and that's what we have to work with and to deal with. And there's not much you can say about that except, good luck to you. Can't help you. So anyway, I just wanted to bring you the latest updates and the latest in the Makena debacle. It's always something. It's always kind of interesting. I'm just really glad that the 17P shots are still out there, readily available, 10, 15 bucks a shot. Women are getting what they need, having healthy babies, sustaining their pregnancies. That's my concern. That's what I care about. Whether or not KV makes it, good luck. And, I don't wish them ill, but I don't have a lot to say in their behalf. So I'm going to leave it like that and just let it be and just say, hey, just updating you on what's going on. It's always a wild ride. Gotta love our culture. You gotta love it. It's gotta be real because people couldn't write fiction this good. But anyway, that's it for me today. Darline Turner, bed rest coach, owner and founder of Mamas on Bed Rest and Beyond. Thank you so much.